All right, boys. This is probably going to be one of our one of our gloomiest intros for a podcast. But DJ, let's hypothetically say that you've got first pick in a death pool. Who are you taking first between Kellen Winslow Jr. and Eldon Smith?
Holy shit. I mean, if you're raping homeless women in general, you have to be the first one to die. If not, he's just going to kill himself because he's about to die.
Right, Hopper. Who do you got?
I'm definitely going with Kellen Winslow.
Yeah, man.
You got some deep rooted issues if you're doing what he's doing, and I'm guessing Aaron Hernandez is himself.
Yeah, no doubt. It's a clean sweep. I'm with you guys. But before we start, DJ, do you know how I always say, like, dude, we need to have a segment, Daddy Advice with DJ?
Nope.
Oh, well, you actually do. But I just wanted to let you know I'm planning on starting a segment. It's called Pregnant Wife Advice with Ben. Let's get loaded. Because this is the Loaded Box Podcast,
where we never finish first because we finish last.
Welcome to the Loaded Box Podcast. I am Ben Morgan. That is DJ Primo. I feel like DJ wants to say something.
I don't even understand what just happened, but I'm actually disappointed that I wouldn't be told this well beforehand. Being your best friend.
I knew this from the get-go. Like as soon as my wife got pregnant, I'm like, I'm breaking the news on the podcast. I cannot do it any other way. I thought you'd be pissed if I didn't do it this way.
I'm pissed about everything.
Wait, I just realized that I was just part of your pregnancy announcement. I had no idea that was coming. Congratulations.
Thank you very much. I don't know if I said this earlier. I'm Ben Morgan. That's DJ Primo. This is the Loaded Box Podcast. And that voice you just heard right there, that is not Jesus, despite the fact that you think it might be. That is Kristopher Hopper of the Beer Fueled Fantasy Football Podcast. Chris, first and foremost, thank you for being part of my announcement. I would have rather had it no other way. How are you doing today, man? What's going on? Where can people find your stuff?
I am happy to be here. I'm happy to be part of your announcement. You can find my stuff at HopBFF on Twitter with 2 P's. You can find my show at BeerfieldFF on Twitter with 2 F's, I guess. And you can also find links to donate to St. Jude's. We are partnering with a local organization called Wrestling for a Cure, where if we can raise $500 to St. Jude's, I will be put through a table. So
what?
We are, yeah.
I sort of feel like you shouldn't have people donate to that cause.
I feel like that's the only reason people would donate to that cause is to see me go through a table. So you can find that information there as well. All funds raised from that do go directly to St. Jude's Children's Hospital. So if you don't like cancer in kids, or wait,
if you do like kids,
something. If you like kids and don't like kids having cancer.
Hopper's been drinking. We got to cut him a little bit of slack on that one. So yes, this is going to be our We Are Not Freshmen Anymore podcast. We're talking about 2019 second-year NFL players and how they are going to factor into fantasy football this upcoming season. I put it on the table. I said, Hop, we can either do quarterbacks and wide receivers, or we can do running backs and tight ends. And I think Hopper was like, dude, I'm going to take the DJ route here. I don't want to talk a damn thing about tight ends. Let's go quarterbacks and wide receivers. So that's what we're going to do today. Are you guys ready? DJ.
I'm so, my mind is all in a pretzel right now. How are we just moving on from this?
What do you want to know?
I'm still upset that I know that I'm not the first person to know. I'm pissed. Number 2, if you want somebody to support kids with cancer, you need to get Trick Daddy, because Trick a lot of kids.
This is episode 201 of our existence, Hopper, and I think that might have been DJ's best ever line.
I'm really excited about that one.
I really like that. DJ, we'll have to talk more. I just love that you're going to be just so flustered this entire podcast now.
I was prepared mentally to not be prepared, and then now I'm even more fucked than I ever was.
Mentally to not be prepared.
I say shit like that. That's how good I am.
We haven't even gotten into the content yet, and we've talked about Kellen Winslow raping a homeless person, my wife being pregnant, and whether or not you like kids and whether or not you like cancer.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's some combination of both of those things.
Yeah, one way or another. Well, let's get this puppy kicked off. We've got some kind of big name quarterbacks that are second-year guys. we'll go right through their list kind of based on ADP. Hopper, I'll start with you. How are you feeling this year about Baker Mayfield? His current average draft position is the 7th pick in the 6th round, making him the 5th overall quarterback.
I'm feeling pretty good about Baker Mayfield. That's probably about right for him, honestly. He came out and had a great rookie season, about 64% completion percentage, 3,700 yards, 5.6% touchdown rate in just 14 games. That's all sustainable. And you add Odell Beckham to that mix to go along with Jarvis Landry, just gives him another weapon, and they're going to have a running game. I think that Baker Mayfield is probably going to be worth that ADP. I think he's going to live up to it, and I think you're going to see a jump. Even if he had played 16 games last year, he'd have been well over 30 touchdowns and 4,000 yards. So, I mean, that right there is worth where he's being picked.
Yeah, I think I can speak for DJ when I say the 6th round is slightly a little too early for where I typically like to draft my quarterback. DJ, are you on board with that?
5th overall quarterback for a guy who's played 1 year of football?
That's like how Deshaun Watson was, though, kind of last year, you know?
Like,
the part that surprises me is that there's 5 quarterbacks gone by the 6th round.
Yeah,
Right.
that's
also part I don't agree with.
Yeah, I'm 100% on board with you. I usually wait, round 8 to 10 to get a quarterback because people they overhype guys. They take them too early. Fucking, Patrick Mahomes is going to go in the 1st round in a bunch of leagues probably because people are stupid. But in general, I mean, I like Baker Mayfield. I've been known as a Baker Mayfield hater. I think that's what people think I am. I'm not. I've never been a Baker Mayfield hater. I just didn't think his game would translate. I think he's pretty good. I think he's going to have a good season. I'm just not taking any quarterback comfortably especially in his 2nd season in the 6th round when there's just other position players that are much more valuable there.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong, I'm completely on board on wait on quarterback because there's not enough parity in that position to justify taking somebody before round 8 to me. But I think when we look back on the season that you can kind of shrug and say, okay, yeah, Baker had that type of season like we, would see from, you're going to hate this, but, Rodgers or Breeze in the past where he's put up enough fantasy relevance between his rushing upside and what he did with his arm and those wide receivers to say, okay, yeah, that wasn't, an egregious reach or anything like that, even though it is earlier than I would typically want to take a quarterback.
Right. I'm just looking at our latest positional fantasy football rankings on loadedboxpodcast.com. So it's myself and DJ and then 2 of the guys that contribute as writers. And it's funny because Baker is our consensus number 5 quarterback. Me and the other 2 writers, Mikey and Ryan, have him ranked 5th. DJ, you have Baker Mayfield ranked 12th.
Yeah, seems fair to me.
I was just curious to see who you had ranked 5th, and you have Phillip Rivers, and it's funny because the rest of us have Rivers ranked around 12th. But I think where I agree with you as I like Rivers that much as well, but just knowing that I can get him as quarterback between 10 and 13, I'm gonna rank him there just because that's how it's gonna end up going. And the reason why I'm going to pass on a guy like Baker that high in the 5th or 6th round is because I can get Rivers 4 or 5 rounds later. So I'm with you on that side of things.
Right. I mean, I'm not ranking a guy based off of where I think they're going to go. I'm ranking off of a guy where I think they're going to finish, though.
Hopper, do you how do you feel about that?
I think they're going to finish, and I haven't done my Browns projections yet, but I guarantee you Baker Mayfield is going to land higher than 12th for me. And I'm ranking where I think they're going to finish, and I do think Baker Mayfield is a top 7 quarterback.
Yeah, I love the idea of trying to get Baker in a league this year, but I'm with DJ in the fact that
he's not going to fall far enough.
That's the thing. It's I feel like I just want to load up on as many running backs and as many wide receivers as possible because I feel like I can always find that quarterback round 8th or lower. Whereas, man, it's week 7, it's week 8. A couple of my guys went down with injury. If you were one of those people that took Leonard Fournette last year, and you're just scrambling for running backs, and if you're using a 5th or a 6th round pick on a quarterback, that's taking away a potentially great skill position player away from you when you can get potentially that same type of level of quarterback play 5 to 6 rounds later. So that's why I think I love Mayfield, but I think that ADP is a little too rich for me.
Well, we have a saying over on my show too, which is we don't hate players, we hate ADP.
I might steal that. That's pretty good. Let's move on to Buffalo's rookie from last year. It's Josh Allen. His current ADP is the first pick in the 11th round. That's quarterback 16. DJ, I'm going to let you lead off on this one.
I mean, this honestly makes absolutely no sense to me. To me, Josh Allen is just. I still think he's a bad quarterback. Are we looking at rushing yards that people are like in love with him from? Like he still has no wide receivers. I don't think he's accurate. I don't think he's a good quarterback. I think he's going to be awful. There's nothing around him that supports him being that high. Like he should be in the 20s. So that ADP out of control. I honestly believe that's just ridiculous. He's not a guy that I'm drafting around there. There's probably guys like Phillip Rivers who are going to be available at that point probably. So it's just that's a ridiculous ADP for a guy who I just is not worth any pick on my team at that round.
Hopper, before you pop in, I want to make it noted that on our website he's quarterback 19, and that's large part because DJ has him ranked at 27. DJ, like, this is so funny, like how DJ does his rankings. He literally told you what he did. He's like, I am not gonna care where their ADP is. I'm ranking these guys literally based on like where I think they're going to finish, and I think they're going to be trash. I will rank them as trash, and he's not scared about doing it.
Yeah. For Josh Allen, I do think he still has some rush upside, but that's about where it ends, and that's a tricky thing to play with because I mean he did have it was 4 90-plus rush yard games in the last 7 weeks, so he's got a decent floor. But I don't expect the passing to be that great, even if he does improve. Probably around 3,300 yards, 20 touchdowns, 16 picks. And to me, when a guy's arm is not that great and you're relying on what may or may not be rushing upside, yes, they added Cole Beasley. That should help his percentages a bit for the 6 weeks he's healthy. But you don't really have anything else around him, like DJ mentioned. So Josh Allen, he's a streamer. He's not somebody you should be drafting in redraft. You will have some weeks where he's a top 12 quarterback. And that's why you continue to listen to these shows, because we'll try to tell you when that's going to be. But
right.
Not draft.
Hopper, is it your fantasy? We're talking about redraft league here. Is it your strategy to draft like one quarterback and then just try to pick someone up on like a bye week or if you get injured, or do you try to at some point just draft 2 quarterbacks so that you have one kind of in the hopper, pun intended, in the event you need him?
It's my strategy to draft one because there's going to be injuries and there's going to be things that happen throughout the season to where and just from the research we do week in, week out, I mean, there's just going to be people out there on waiver wire that you can find that are viable and everything other than super flex. I mean, in Dynasty, I obviously hold multiple quarterbacks, but in redraft, no, I'm only keeping one on my roster, and then if something happens, I'll figure it out then.
Because a lot of the times, like lately, since I've been drafting quarterbacks so much later, like if I'm taking one like for the first time in the 8th round, I'm not totally opposed to like coming back and taking one in like the 10th or 11th. Just in the event that he gets hurt, I don't want to have to scramble on the waiver wire. So that's why I wouldn't want to wait and let Josh Allen be my guy. But end of the day, if I can get a guy like Phillip Rivers or a Dak Prescott or someone a little bit later in the draft and come back like 2, 3, 4 rounds later and get a Josh Allen, I'm not super against that because of the fact, I mean, we saw what he did last year. It was shaky. There were some games like, oh my God, this guy's going to put up like a Tim Tebow game. And then boom, he ran for 100 yards in that game and became fantasy relevant. That's not something you want to bank on, but I don't mind that out of my backup.
It's not a bad thing to have in your back pocket. And if you're in a league that's more than 12 teams or has deeper benches, that's absolutely the case. And again, there's nothing wrong with doing that either and taking a late round quarterback, because if you do have a need to fill it with something else, it's an easy turn spot.
Right.
And those last 2 round picks or whatever, right before you take your kicker and your defense are turn spots anyway. You're just going to rotate them in and out. So, if you do wait on a quarterback and you're not completely sold on Phillip Rivers and pair him with somebody, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. I typically don't do it, but I definitely see the merits of that strategy.
Right. DJ, did you have any more you wanted to add about Allen there?
Aaron Rodgers.
All right, let's move on to a true running quarterback here, one we knew was going to be his strength. That's Lamar Jackson of the Ravens, going as the 3rd pick in the 12th round. Quarterback 19. DJ, will rotate back to you. How are you feeling about Lamar Jackson?
So I think it's been pretty well noted that I just fucking hate Lamar Jackson.
Do you like anyone besides Aaron Rodgers at this point?
I mean, no, Lamar Jackson is just trash. I watched I watched a few of his games. I mean, watched every game that he fucking played in last year, and there's nothing about any bit of his game that I like. That guy, what did I rank him? I bet I banked him, if I guess, 30. I'm guessing 30.
I wish I had the ding ding horn because you were spot on. I was going to say you ranked him quarterback 30.
Lamar Jackson's going to throw 100 fucking interceptions this year. This guy is awful. He's not going to be a starting quarterback for that long. I just don't. I don't know what the Ravens see in them. I mean, I don't like Joe Flacco, but Lamar Jackson to me is, just by my eyes, just by what I looked at, is a terrible fucking quarterback for the NFL, and I don't want any shares of that guy.
You know, the funny part too was last year. I think it was like a playoff, like a fantasy playoff matchup, and a lot of people that had Aaron Rodgers had picked up Lamar Jackson because of just when Rodgers was like going through some stuff, and Lamar Jackson was that guy that everyone got, and it came down to like a playoff matchup, and everyone was like, "Who do I start? Do I start Rodgers or do I start Lamar Jackson in this real juicy matchup?" And guess what? That's where, like, if you have a quarterback like Aaron Rodgers, you never bench him regardless of matchup, and that's where it comes into play here. And that's what I think about when I think of Lamar Jackson. It's like he's gonna have certain matchups like week to week, and you're gonna think like, I need to play him this week. And more often than not, I think it's going to burn you because no matter what they say, Ravens are saying they want to run a more like prototype offense. They realize he can't run the ball 15 to 20 times per game. Guess what? Like, if you're not running that gimmicky, like, run all the time offense, Lamar Jackson's going to struggle. So, how I talked about maybe taking Josh Allen as a backup guy that I can trust, I don't even like the idea of taking Lamar Jackson, who is a better runner, obviously, than Josh Allen. I don't like the idea of even taking Lamar Jackson because I think there's going to be so much inconsistency. And yeah, he's going to run for 2 touchdowns and 75 yards a couple weeks. You ain't going to be able to predict that. That's not going to work. So he's really not even on my draft radar as well. Hopper, how do you feel?
He's absolutely trash. He's not an NFL quarterback. He cannot throw. I mean, say Josh Allen can't throw. Lamar Jackson's worse.
Yes.
This is a guy that completed 14 passes a game in 7 games started. I don't want to start a quarterback that's only completing 14 passes a game,
Right.
despite the rough upside. The Chargers put out a blueprint on how to beat him. You put speed out there and you contain him. He's got nothing to throw to. He's got nobody else to stop them from spying on them. And the Ravens are saying, like you said, he's not going to run 15 or 20 times. Okay, then your offense is going to be a dumpster fire. Because you built this team to run and to be gimmicky and to be speed. And if you're not going to use the players you have
Right.
In the way that they have to be used, then it's going to be terrible. Trace McSorley is a better NFL quarterback than Lamar Jackson.
And it's unfortunate to say, but man, like you almost would like say like give him like an equal battle, like a training camp battle, and who knows like what the hell would happen from that.
McSorley is going to beat him in every throwing metric.
Probably.
Oh yeah, 100%.
I'm doing I've been doing some like articles on our website, like each team in the NFL, one guy you should definitely target and one person you should definitely like try to avoid come draft day. And before we started this podcast, I was working on my NFC North or AFC North version of this, and I got to the Ravens and I was like player to avoid. And I'm spoiler alert, I wrote any and all wide receivers. Don't draft any of this damn team's wide receivers because even if they try to throw it like they're saying they're going to, what are the odds that that completion percentage is going to be anywhere good, that they're going to be able to like have a consistent number of yards, touchdowns? Like that's my total like avoid this year. Just look at a Baltimore Ravens wide receiver on your cheat sheet and cross him off already.
Agreed.
Oh, here's an interesting one. I'm actually surprised his ADP is not a little bit higher. It's Sam Darnold going as the 9th pick in the 14th round, quarterback 26. Hopper will have you kick it off.
You should absolutely be higher than that. I see Sam Darnold kind of following the Mitch Trubisky curve a little bit as a comparison to where he's not going to be a week in or week out starter, but he's definitely going to give you some high-level flex value, especially with what's around him. You've got Le'Veon Bell coming in. It's going to take some of the pressure off of him to be the guy, but also give him some high-percentage throws with his work in the passing game. Quincy Enunwa was back. We saw the rapport show up later in the year with Robbie Anderson, and you add Jamison Crowder to that mix.
Right.
I think that he's got good weapons around him. Chris Herndon, I'm projecting to have a big year, after the whole DUI thing settles anyway. Darnold had a 4.1% touchdown rate last year, which is very, very solid for a rookie. That interception rate needs to come down some. I don't think he's necessarily somebody I'm drafting and starting, but if you're taking the Ben Morgan approach and drafting 2 quarterbacks is not a bad second one to have, because I do think he comes on stronger as the year goes, and I do think he's going to give you some streamer value. So, I mean, to me, out of everybody we just mentioned, outside of Baker Mayfield, Sam Darnold's the one I'm most comfortable with.
Yeah, Hopper literally took the words right out of my mouth. That's what I was going to say, so I won't add any more to that. DJ, how do you feel about Darnold?
Darnold, I was going to say, he's my last year's Trubisky, but better. Like, to me, he is Mr. Trubisky of last year, but better. I'm going to draft him probably as my QB1 because I'm just going to wait till round 12. I'm going to let him start on my team, and I think I'm going to fucking benefit from it big time. Do you hear my child?
I have a child. It's yeah, I was just looking at our consensus rankings. You have him highest of the 4 of us that do it for our website. You have him as quarterback 17. So yeah, you're a little bit higher than most on him.
I'm not even looking at those either. So this is like consistent with what I put on there, which makes me the best there is.
That's what it is.
But anyways, like he I mean, Hopper literally said everything I wanted to say.
Yeah, he crushed that.
With Le'Veon Bell, everything. I think that's way too low. I don't understand how Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen are going in front of Sam Darnold. This team could actually, there's a team that's going to win the division that's not the Patriots. This is the team to me. I think Sam Darnold's the real deal. He will be on probably 100% of my rosters this year. Just letting you know, Ben.
Holy cow. There's one quarterback left. He doesn't currently have an ADP. I don't want to spend too much time on him because he's not even a clear-cut starter, but it's Josh Rosen. I'll lead this one off just because I'm the in-house Dolphins fan. It's a guy you can get on the waiver wire. He'll probably end up starting. He may do okay. He's kind of going to just be like a guy that you can use maybe on a bye week, maybe on an injury. Other than that, I don't think I have too much to say about him. DJ Hopper.
He's got a long way to come. I do think that he does. I'm with you. I do think he ends up starting at some point over Fitzpatrick, but we saw it in college. We saw it last year. He does not do well under pressure. The Dolphins don't have a great offensive line. So I think that he's more of a project piece and something you're going to see any real relevance out of this year. Completion percentage is 33.6 under pressure. That's absolutely terrible. Just 59.9%, which takes out throwaway passes. That is good for 36th in the NFL. And there's actually a lot of advanced metrics where it was 36th and, out of 32 starting quarterbacks. So, he's a project piece.
Right.
I mean, anybody's going to suck behind the Arizona Cardinals offensive line. But, I can't wait to see Kyler Murray. The Rosen one. I think he's going to shock the people. He's going to shock the world. I'm a Rosen guy. I'm a big Rosen supporter. I want him to be successful. He's also a friend of Aaron Rodgers, so that might make me a little bit biased. I fucking hate the Dolphins, though, but I want to see Rosen be successful. I think that he can be, because I thought he was the most pro-ready of the draft class with the passes that he had the ability to make. Yeah, the offensive line is always going to be a worry, but, I mean, he was behind the Cardinals' offensive line, so it literally can't get worse than that.
Right. It's just going to be one of those deals. You're going to have to wait and see, because the Dolphins' offensive line is probably a little bit better, but just not significantly.
Well, and when it comes to weapons too, again, you got a couple pieces that are at least decent, but you don't have anything that's surefire. Hey, this is absolutely going to help out a young quarterback or anything like that.
What do you mean? It's Devontae Parker season.
It always is. It's June, right?
Devontae Parker season for 10 years.
Yeah, it's Devontae Parker season. The other thing I was going to say, and I didn't throw out there, is if Josh Rosen doesn't start from day one, the Dolphins fucked up already. It just wouldn't make any sense not to start him from literally game one. It just doesn't.
I got him taking over in week 5.
There's no point in starting Fitzpatrick because he's just not the future. So you see what you have, you play him, and if it doesn't work out, you get your quarterback next year, the year after that, and Trevor Lawrence.
No NFL team's going to admit that. They're going to go out there and they're going to lose their first 4, and then they're going to make the change.
I don't agree, because they kind of just did that in the draft, right? They've basically gotten rid of everybody and said, fuck it, this year sucks anyways. Let's go get Rosen and put him in. They got him for a reason. Let him play, see what it is.
Who's the last team that did that?
The Dolphins.
This year.
Who's the last team that said, screw it, we got this. We got to see what the future is, even though we have a bridge quarterback. Who's the last team that did that?
But they're clearly doing that right now.
Okay.
Like, it looks like they're clearly doing that.
Okay. All right.
That's that.
Patrick is starting the season.
I get what Hopper's saying because, like, based on all reports, it's like Fitzpatrick has been like the leader of that offense. He's clearly outperforming. But I'm with DJ. Like, who has the only chance of being the long-term solution? It's Rosen. So you give him all 16 games, you see what you have, and then you draft for a quarterback in 2020 if it doesn't work out. Like,
DJ is not wrong in his thought process. I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying the Dolphins are going to do that.
Well, since we're talking about their fantasy relevancy, we've talked about Josh Rosen too long. But before we jump into the wide receiver position, let's talk about Pristine Auction real quick, because we're going to be doing another giveaway via Pristine Auction leading up to the 2019 NFL season. But in the meantime, we wanted to let you know that you can get an extra $5 put towards any item that you win at pristineauction.com by entering the code LOADED in the registration code field when you create your account. They've got daily auctions, they've got week-long auctions, tons of stuff for all sports for the man cave. Father's Day is coming up. If you're listening to this and you haven't gotten your Father's Day present yet, you're probably too late. But since you're already late, you might as well try to go to pristineauction.com and get something there despite the fact that you're late. And just do it then. So go to pristineauction.com today. With that, let's kick off a little bit of wide receiver talk. This is my guy. Like, number one guy here is Calvin Ridley. The Falcons receiver, his current ADP is the 10th pick in the 5th round. That's wide receiver 25. Hop, I'm going to let you kick this one off.
Calvin Ridley is a bit of an enigma to me. I do not think he's the best second-year receiver this year. I don't think he's going to lead them. I do think he's going to be relevant, though. He saw 92 targets last year, but he only saw more than 5 twice in the second half of the season. Most of his work was early on. I think as long as Mohamed Sanu's there, they're going to eat into each other's work, which is going to keep Ridley kind of below that wide receiver 2 threshold, kind of in the 3 area. I wouldn't be surprised if he jumps up above 100 targets, but as long as Sanu's there, I don't see him taking a huge jump from last year as far as the amount of work that he sees or the volume that he sees, which is going to cap his upside.
So I'm going to be kind of opposite of what that is. So in the meantime, DJ, if you're ready, I'll let you give your Ridley talk first. DJ has muted himself, and that just shows what we talked about earlier about going on and off of the rails on a podcast. DJ's back on the rails. Here we go.
Austin Hooper is the other thing I forgot to mention too. He had a kind of a mini breakout last year as well. So just think target volume might be the only issue for Ridley.
You just wanted to say Hooper because it sounds like Hopper.
That too.
DJ, have you unmuted yourself?
Are you guys done?
Yeah.
I don't hate Calvin Ridley. I don't. I just hate Matt Ryan. I mean, I say this over and over and over again, but I think ADP wise, fantasy football wise, wide receiver 25 makes sense. I mean, that's about where he should go in my eyes. I said last time we talked about him, I don't think he would be the second wide receiver on my team, but I could see him being the second wide receiver on my team. I just don't want him there. But there is Mohamed Sanu. Julio is a target monster. I mean, you still got Devontae Freeman, and then that Matt Ryan just sucks. So that guy's my biggest worries. Calvin Ridley is an elite route runner. It has great hands, and I mean, you saw what he could do in a couple of games. He's shown flashes of literally being like a top 15 wide receiver when he got his chances. So I mean, it's always hard for rookie wide receivers to, and I say this every year, rookie wide receivers, they're not going to end up on my team because it's hard. It's hard for them to break out because there's so much new stuff from them to learn, and it's completely different as a wide receiver in the NFL than it is from college. Calvin Ridley has another year of experience. 25 is perfectly accurate. I would be comfortable taking him there.
I do want to call you a little bit on your BS, DJ, because I'm looking at your rankings. You have him as wide receiver 43.
I still have to change my rankings on that. I
have him as wide receiver. What was that, Hopper?
I said I'd probably, like I said, I'm projecting the Falcons and stuff this week. Little teaser, our episode this week is the NFC South.
Nice.
Coming out Sunday. But I would probably have him somewhere in the 30s. I do think he's a wide receiver 3 with upside. So I would probably have him somewhere around 30s.
So here's where we're going to defer on this one because I've got him as wide receiver 23. And I said this on like 2 podcasts of our last like 5 of them probably. I think the combo of Julio and Calvin can prove to literally be the best wide receiver duo in the NFL this year. And why I like Calvin more this year is because his big knock last year was he scored all of his points like in a matter of a couple of weeks. Like he wasn't very consistent. I think this year Julio is always going to be, as DJ would call him, the target hopper. He's going to be the target monster. He's going to get his. Freeman's coming back. I think that's a good thing. Like Devontae Freeman is a good running back. I want him in the fold. I think this is your transition, though, where Mohamed Sanu takes a step back. We've never really seen Matt Ryan be awesome with a tight end. So while I really do like Hooper as a late tight end, I don't think he's going to be a stud. Here's where I think Calvin Ridley takes that year of NFL experience. He's already an elite route runner. He can get it done after the catch. DJ mentioned the hands. I think he's going to be more consistent this year, where we're going to see him flirt with 1,000 yards. And Julio Jones isn't going to catch those damn touchdowns. He finally broke out a little bit last year. Guess who the touchdowns are going to go to? It's probably going to go to Ridley, and I'm getting him. I'm going to get Ridley. What did I say his ADP was? In the end of the 5th, early 6th round of like my 6 redraft leagues, I wouldn't be surprised if I have Calvin Ridley in like 4 of them.
Okay, I'm going to go off because this is what I do. And you've been doing this for the last 3 weeks, and it's really been pissing me the fuck off.
Uh-oh.
You cannot get the word right. It's differ. You keep saying defer. Do you realize defer is a completely different, like, defer is to like you're gonna delay. You keep saying like I'm gonna delay or I'm gonna put it off. It's differ.
I need to change my vocabulary because I know that I'm saying that word incorrectly.
Say it every time.
I love that
I can't even take it anymore. I'm done with it.
Hey, I'm gonna be a father. I'm gonna teach my child how to say defer correctly.
I just had to do it. Like everything you said about Calvin Ridley, like went way over my head.
Oh
I
yeah.
Can't get over the fact that you just don't know the difference between defer and differ.
I could tell that you both wanted to talk, and I could tell that you wanted to talk about that, and that Hopper wanted to talk about Calvin Ridley.
Go ahead, Hopper.
No, I'm actually looking at the numbers right now, and I think that. Actually, the way that I think I'm going to project this, I'm probably going to be more in line with you than I thought, Ben, and this is why I do stat projections.
Cheers.
Because when I look at Sanu versus Ridley, even if I shift that target volume just a little bit, he is going to be double-digit touchdowns. He is going to be over 100 targets, and he probably is going to be at least over 950 yards. So, yeah, you're probably going to be a hypocrite come Sunday, honestly.
Yeah, I'm going to probably be moving him up in my rankings for sure.
I love it though. Hey, Hopper, you got to use this episode as like a prelim to the one that you actually are doing for your own thing. So we work out the kinks. That's what we do.
That's what I'm doing. I'm working out the kinks. Like I said, I don't plan on doing stat projections until over the weekend, so I'll know more then. And for now, I'm just gonna spitball, and then when you contradict me, I'm gonna go look at it.
I love it.
If you're right, I'll tell you you're right. Yeah, you're right.
Beautiful. As we all take a drink of beer at the same time. Fantastic.
That was hard for me to admit.
Hey, but I like your cup. It's a Chicago Cubs cup, so I can get behind that.
That's right.
Let's talk about another wide receiver. I'll let DJ kick this one off. It's another guy I like. It's Dante Pettis of the 49ers, currently going as the first pick in the 8th round. Wide receiver 33. DJ, how you feeling about Pettis?
I like having guys like Hopper on because they do stat projections and it counters my like just fucking talking and just using my eyes in general.
Oh, it's a great mix.
It is. It's beautiful because I said to you before I came into this, like, I'm doing zero prep because the last 2 games or last 2 podcasts, it's games for me. This is like a football game.
Right.
But last 2 game podcasts, I've prepped, and it's like it's not as authentic. I feel like my jokes I wrote about, and then it just came out like a robot. So this time I can come up with things like Trick Love Kids just right in the middle of it. So
or defer.
Yeah, like that shit right there. But Dante Pettis. What is there to say about Dante Pettis? I'm just delaying right now because I don't know what I want to say. I'm a Dante Pettis I'm a Dante Pettis fan. Like, I liked a lot of what I saw of him last year, and I mean, 8.01 wide receiver 33. He's a guy I would probably not be afraid to take a little bit of a flyer and reach on him to make sure I get him around earlier than what he's going. Because what I know, we haven't seen a lot out of Jimmy Garoppolo, but he was playing with a lot of shitty quarterbacks in general, and I don't know how good Garoppolo is. Nobody does. Everybody projects him to be this great quarterback every year, but there's no sample size. But I do think Dante Pettis is, honestly, I personally think he's the best wide receiver on this team. This is a guy I'd be willing to take a whole round earlier just to make sure I get him on my team. As a guy that I can kind of plug and play, and if my wide receiver 2 is Calvin Ridley and Dante Pettis works out better, then I can plug him in that spot.
Fair enough. Hopper?
Yeah, so the wide receiver for San Francisco is a very interesting thing because none of them had more than 66 targets last year.
Right, it was the Kittle show.
Yeah, it was the George Kittle show. Jimmy Garoppolo is coming in, so everybody's going to have to rebuild that rapport a bit. So this is a little bit harder to project or to put a finger on, but I love Dante Pettis. He's versatile. He can play inside or outside as far as slot or go deep. He's fast enough. He's a good enough route runner. He's got good enough hands to where I think if he can step to the next level, if they do use their wide receivers more, he's probably the best bet out of this group to be fantasy relevant from a wide receiver perspective. He did have some health issues last year, so I don't ever slap injury prone on a rookie just because you've only got that one season to go off of it. And Pettis was not somebody that dealt with it a lot in college. So ultimately I do like Dante Pettis. He's probably going to sit somewhere behind DJ Moore and Calvin Ridley for me in these rankings, but there's a lot more. I think those two aforementioned players have better floor, whereas Dante Pettis is going to be more of a big upside play just because San Francisco is going to be so in flux with it really being the first any length of time they get Jimmy Garoppolo.
Right. I feel weird every time I think about Dante Pettis in fantasy football because coming out of the draft, I wasn't super high on Pettis, but going to the 49ers, being able to play with Garoppolo, getting into that Kyle Shanahan offense, and what I like the most is I really thought a guy like Antonio Brown or someone would go to the 49ers and be that alpha wide receiver. Well, guess what? They don't have that. They got Pettis, they got Goodwin, they got Kittle, they've got a load of running backs that can get it done. So, yeah, there's going to be a guy that maybe separates, but at the end of the day, if they don't like separate and target like one wide receiver just crazy, it's going to get spread out pretty well. And I think Pettis is going to be that guy that ends up being the most consistent. I'm right there with his ADP. I have him as wide receiver 33. I've tried landing him in my dynasty league a couple of different times, just haven't been able to. I'm super high on him, but I think I'm highest on him because of the fact that it's year 2 in Shanahan's system. He's shown the most potential of those wide receivers. He's getting Garoppolo back, and we've seen how in a Shanahan offense, like the points and the yardage that they can put up back when he was with the Falcons, and he was supporting all those fantasy guys. So, yeah, I'm definitely not opposed to taking Pettis this year.
No, not at all.
Let's go on to the next wide receiver. He's in a bit of a hole here right now, playing with his second rookie quarterback basically in a row. It's Christian Kirk of the Cardinals. Current ADP is basically the same as Pettis, going as the first pick in the 8th round, wide receiver 34. I sort of wish we would have paired these two just because they do have the same exact ADP. And if these two are on the board and I'm up, I am 100% on Pettis' side. How do you guys feel between these two receivers?
So it's tough for me with Christian Kirk, and it's the same. Again, it's a lot like Pettis, as you mentioned. He's got a rookie quarterback coming in who I do think is a better quarterback than the one that just left, and is also more geared toward behind an offensive line that isn't great. He's going to an offensive-minded head coach, but we've seen offensive-minded head coaches come up from college and not do well at the NFL, so that remains to be seen. Ultimately, Christian Kirk has been one of my favorite dynasty trade targets over the offseason because I do think he is going to take the next step, and I do think I'm kind of flip-flopped here. I do like Christian Kirk a little bit more than Dante Pettis, I think, just because in Arizona, I mean, you have Fitzgerald who's on his last leg, and then it's wide open. There really is no target hog. I mean, at
Right.
least in San Francisco, George Kittle is going to get his. He's going to get 100 plus.
Right.
In Arizona, you don't have that.
No.
So I think as far as opportunity goes, there's Christian Kirk and then Larry Fitzgerald, and then everything else is kind of who knows. They drafted Andy Isabella, which is weird to me since they had Christian Kirk, but
Right.
they picked up Kevin White, a former first-round pick.
They got a
They don't really have
Butler.
anything they don't really have anything that's been established.
Yeah. I'm trying to avoid that offense so much right now. I actually drafted Akeem Butler in the first round of my dynasty draft. I've already traded him. Like I didn't even give him a chance. Like I already dealt him in part of another deal. So like I said, I'm gonna go Pettis in this situation. DJ, they basically have the same ADP. Are you more Christian Kirk or Dante Pettis?
Can I ask a question? Maybe, and Hopper's probably going to know the answer to this right away.
Figure you're going to ask it anyway, so go for it.
Who was the top wide receiver on the Buffalo Bills last year?
From a fantasy perspective,
Yeah.
I want to say Zay Jones.
Where do you think? I don't know the answers. I'm just hoping that you do. Do you have any idea where he finished when it came to overall fantasy wide receivers last year?
I don't.
Okay, this is, I think, a common mistake people make. Like, from year to year. They say, well, they're going to have more opportunity. I saw this with the Jets 2 years ago. You've seen this with other teams that just aren't good. When you're not a good team, having opportunity as a wide receiver, it's not, to me, it's not a real thing. I just don't think the Cardinals, they're just not good. So there's not a wide receiver. Obviously, Larry Fitzgerald's good, but there's not a wide receiver, especially a guy who's a second year, that I'm going to end up touching for a team like Arizona, because they are a team like Buffalo last year, the Jets 2-3 years ago, where there's no wide receiver that just to me that's worth
They
drafting.
can't overcome that.
Yeah, it's just bad. Like they say, there's people like come back. Oh, they're gonna have garbage time touchdowns. The quarterback in the offense isn't just gonna figure out how to throw the ball in the fourth quarter. It doesn't happen.
I submit the argument of Blake Bortles.
But it just
That's a good one.
I'm gonna ignore that you just besmirched my boy's name in general.
I love Blake Bortles. You know I love Blake.
Yeah, you guys are like the vice president and president of the damn hall or fan club.
But I just don't think that's a real thing, and Christian Kirk's not a guy that I will be touching, and he's probably wide receiver 50-ish on my rankings, I would guess. He's not a guy I'm going to touch. He's way lower than that.
I'll let Hop talk about that, and I'm going to figure out where Christian Kirk is on your rankings, because I'm kind of interested to see now.
Yeah, I was looking to try to figure out where Zay Jones finished last year. He was the top receiver on the Buffalo Bills. My guess is he was somewhere outside of 40 at 102 targets and 650 yards, 7 touchdowns. So, I mean, he would have been wide receiver 4 range with that. And I get what you're saying about, making the more opportunity argument. And it's hard when you don't have any trending data, because it's a new offensive coordinator, it's a new quarterback, everything is completely new. So again, I can't really fault it going either way. I do love Dante Pettis. I'm not surprised that these two are as close as they are in ADP. Again, I lean probably ever so slightly Christian Kirk, but it could end up either way, and I'm not going to be surprised by that.
DJ, for the record, you have Christian Kirk as wide receiver 55, so you're pretty much on par with what you were saying there, despite knowing exactly where you had him ranked. I'm impressed.
I just don't know things, and I drink and I know things.
There it is. Let's talk about a wide receiver a lot of people were really high on last year as a rookie. That was Courtland Sutton of the Broncos. This year he is going as the 6th pick in the 10th round, wide receiver 46th. Obviously, last year he was behind both Demaryius Thomas and Emmanuel Sanders. This year you've got Sanders coming off of a pretty aggressive knee injury, and Demaryius Thomas is now out of the picture. So, DJ, I'll let you kick this one off with Courtland Sutton.
These are so, situations like this are so hard to project, because you've got a brand new quarterback in Joe Flacco, who everybody's... I love it when a guy like John Elway comes out and be like, he threw 80 yards across his body. Oh, really? Fucking Joe Flacco threw a ball really far? Like, we knew he could do that.
You're not breaking in any news.
The fact is, he just can't throw it to guys. It's just that's what makes Joe Flacco bad. He doesn't throw it to him. He just throws it far.
Right.
So I like Courtland Sutton. I just don't know how to project a guy like that in this offense. You don't know what to expect. You don't even know who the highlighted running back is going to be in that offense in general. So I honestly, this is a cop out here, but I have almost no opinion of Courtland Sutton. This is another guy when I can't project somebody like this, I'm not drafting them because in redraft I'm talking.
Yeah.
He's probably a good dynasty type of guy, someone to look for in the long run if he gets a solid quarterback. Because there's things I really do like about Courtland Sutton, but with Joe Flacco, with a new offense, with a new quarterback, just new everything in general, I just don't trust anybody. I mean, we saw what Ravens wide receivers did last year. Why would I expect anything better out of Denver wide receivers?
Yeah, I agree with you. Like you said, so hard to project. And once again, your fantasy rankings brought that to light here as you ranked him as your 64th wide receiver. So that just shows DJ wants nothing to do with Courtland Sutton. So, Hopper, how do you feel? Would that be a guy that you would target this year?
I'm not targeting Courtland Sutton necessarily either. He's a guy I'll take a late round flyer on. The fact is, Courtland Sutton needs to work on him. He needs some time to himself to fix himself. He's not ready for a relationship yet with the fantasy team. Just 50% catch rate, which Flacco is not necessarily a huge accuracy upgrade over Case Keenum. 84 targets. He had opportunity last year when Emmanuel Sanders went down and Demaryius Thomas was traded, and instead he made Tim Patrick look good.
Right.
So
it's like, how the hell did this work?
Nobody's talking about Tim Patrick. So
no,
nor should they, for that matter. So
right.
While Courtland Sutton's talented, the knock on him has always been he's raw. Emmanuel Sanders is trending to be ready by training camp and by week 1 from that Achilles injury, and I think he's the guy for whatever that's worth. We've seen that he still has some left in the tank. I think he's passable with Joe Flacco at quarterback. I think Courtland Sutton's a guy that I'm going to be more interested in year 3 if I can see the peripheral numbers and some of his efficiency numbers go the right direction in year 2, much like the aforementioned Zay Jones did with Buffalo last year.
There it is. Yeah, I'm kind of a hybrid of year 2 opinions. I'm not totally out on Courtland Sutton, but it kind of comes back to I was never super high on him coming into the actual NFL the way it was. So when he went to Denver, I'm like, you know what? This is actually a legit spot for him to go because he can wait. He can learn behind Demaryius Thomas. He can learn behind Emmanuel Sanders. That we saw that it really got put in fast forward because Thomas was gone. Sanders gets hurt. And Sutton kind of had to step in and be that guy. And now, like DJ said, you just brought in Joe Flacco, who I don't think any of us have had faith in for a half to a full decade. So how the hell do you justify taking him? Granted, it's still the 10th round, but it's like there's other guys on the board, even some guys we're going to bring up here in the near future that I'm probably more likely to take a risk on than Courtland Sutton. I'm like DJ said, who's going to be the running back? I'd be more happy taking either Phillip Lindsay or Royce Freeman. Obviously, it's a different position. They have higher ADPs, but I'd be more comfortable taking one of this team's running backs than wide receivers right now. So I'm kind of on the whole sell Courtland Sutton thing. Probably not drafting him in redraft this year.
I'm with you.
All right, let's move on to the next one. It is James Washington of the Steelers. This is a guy I've talked about in the past on this podcast. I'm pretty high on him. I will go last, though. Hopper, why don't you lead off James Washington?
Not to cut you off here, but where the hell is DJ Moore being drafted?
That's what I was wondering.
Oh, he's going to have to get added to my list. I totally blanked on DJ Moore. We'll talk about him. Way to ruin the spoiler. Coming up next. Oh, by the way, James Washington's the 5th pick in the 10th round, wide receiver 45.
Okay. So
thanks for bringing that up.
Yeah, well, I'm sitting here with DJ Moore at the top of my list of second-year wide receivers, and we're getting down to James Washington.
We're going to talk about this guy?
Well, we talked about him earlier, too, and I was, all confused. Why is he not on the list that I'm looking at?
Right. So, James Washington, back on track, I guess.
Now we're here.
Look, you cannot give Juju, with the target volume he's already got, all of Antonio Brown's work.
Right.
James Washington's going to see an uptick. That's inevitable. James Conner, not much of a pass catcher. there's plenty of arguments out there for Jalen Samuels. The fact is that a Mike Tomlin offense has never had more than one fantasy relevant running back, so I would be surprised if he takes a giant chunk of that. And you bring in Moncrief, I believe.
Yep.
Is there?
Yep.
Who will see some of that work as well. But James Washington does stand to see an increase in his target volume and an increase in his workload. Still have the same concerns that James Washington that I had coming out of college, that he has trouble separating. He's not the best route runner. I think in year 2 he progresses. He's probably streamable. He's at round 10 is probably somewhat close to right for him. I mean, I wouldn't take him much higher than that, because if anything, he is going to be a churn roster spot and a flyer and a high volume passing offense, is a guy that has things to prove still. But ultimately, I think he could do worse. And say what you will, DJ mentioned it's hard to predict somebody having more opportunity. Well, this is a situation where you can predict more opportunity, because Antonio Brown and his 150 plus targets left now.
Exactly.
And they got to throw at somebody. It can't all get a Juju.
Right. DJ, you and I have talked a little bit about James Washington, but do you want to just say real quick kind of where you're would you target him based on that ADP, or is he a guy you're probably going to pass on?
I was going to say pretty much what you just said. In the interest of saving time, I agree with most of what Hopper just said. He's going to have an uptick. Tight end's not really a threat there. I mean, it's a fair spot with Antonio Brown being gone.
Yeah, the reason why I like it is a lot of what Hopper said. Obviously, I don't think Juju's just going to step in and take over. Obviously, Bell wasn't there last year, but when he was there, he was getting damn near 80 to 100 catches a year, and he was a factor out of the backfield as a pass-catching option. Someone has to do that, and it's between James Washington and probably Dante Moncrief. And we know what Moncrief is. He's a guy that can get it done, but he's not super consistent. Whereas you have James Washington, you invested a draft pick in this guy a couple of years ago. You need to see what he has. He's going to be the guy, in my opinion, that gets the chance to kind of prove himself. So I just think based on that alone, we've been able to see Ben Roethlisberger, like you said, they don't make 2 running backs fantasy relevant. They definitely make 2 wide receivers fantasy relevant. And I think obviously that's going to be Juju with his super high ADP, and it's going to be James Washington. So at this pick, I don't want to call it an all right steal, but I'd be more than happy to take him at this ADP. Moving on.
Silent.
DJ, we've talked about this. This is where you pipe in and just yell. What do you yell?
Next.
Thank you. Let's talk about DJ Moore. This is a guy I've been meaning to bring up for a long time now. DJ Moore he was too high. That's why I missed him. He's going as the 6th pick in the 6th round, wide receiver 28. Hopper, I know that you're super high on him, so let's let you kick it off.
Yeah, and after looking at Calvin Ridley, it's going to be close between these two. 6th pick in the 6th round, I'm probably okay with DJ Moore, though. Saw 82 targets last season. You had Devin Funchess and his 79 leave town. They didn't really replace him with anything. And I really see that being spread out across DJ Moore and Curtis Samuel, which puts DJ Moore more in where we saw Devin Funchess at in 2017, Calvin Benjamin in 2016, except DJ Moore's a better wide receiver than either of those two.
And not fat.
Not fat, exactly. So I think DJ Moore probably going to be upwards of 100 targets, probably going to be upwards of 65 receptions, 950 yards. What's going to hurt him over some other guys is the touchdown numbers. He's going to have to get a bit better in the red zone. This is a team that runs more in the red zone than anything else. Not a ton of passing touchdown work to be had. So that's going to keep him down probably below Ridley for me if we're making comparisons. But I do think he's in that same tier and is set to see similar target volume and similar receiving work and be the wide receiver 1 on this team.
Based on his ADP right now, he's kind of surrounded by Calvin Ridley, Tyler Boyd, Alshon Jeffrey, Robbie Anderson, Allen Robinson, Will Fuller, Christian Kirk, Dante Pettis. That's kind of the company he's keeping. So right away when you see that ADP, my initial thought is, that's a little too high. I don't really like that. But when you're looking at where he's getting drafted, you know my thoughts on Calvin Ridley. He's going to be my guy. I'm fairly high on Robbie Anderson this year. I'd probably tread lightly with a guy like Allen Robinson. Will Fuller, I know we don't want to label guys as injured, but man, this guy's always...
He's been here long enough to be injured.
Yeah, bro. He's just always injured. He's already questionable. It's not even week 1. So yeah, based on that ADP, based on the amount of targets that are probably going to be available to him, I'm not opposed to taking DJ Moore at this spot. Which when I first saw it, wide receiver 28, I'm like, that's a little too rich. I'm totally fine with that ADP. DJ,
I love DJ Moore.
you would.
I do. I'm a big fan of him. Look, Cam Newton's arm isn't going to be what it was last year. It's going to be vastly improved. It's not going to be as crappy with the shoulder injury that he had to deal with last year. And Cam Newton's a guy who typically throws to one wide receiver. It's like tight end, running back, and then one guy he focuses on. DJ Moore is going to be that guy, a guy that he started to kind of trust later in the year. Has a full year with him now, and it will focus on him when it comes to wide receivers. I like DJ Moore. I probably had him ranked around wide receiver 28. I bet I had him like I bet he was 28-ish on my list. If not, I'm like one or two off.
26.
Yeah, I'm a big DJ Moore guy this year.
Nice, I like it. Well, we got to give a big shout out to Hop for bringing DJ Moore to my attention. I don't know what I was doing. I'm guessing if you're watching on YouTube, I'm holding a Busch Light. That might be part of to blame. I'm normally not one to shift blame, but in this case, I will. So F you, Busch Light. Here's a guy I want. I'm gonna have DJ kick this one off because I think he is a huge fan of this guy, mostly because of his name, and it's Keke Coutee. Houston Texans, going as the 11th pick in the 10th round, wide receiver 48. So, DJ, Keke, do you love me?
I'm not Keke. I mean, do I like Deshaun Watson? Do I like the Houston Texans?
That's true.
No, I don't. I don't know. It's probably pretty. I mean, he's a solid wide receiver, put up some good numbers. In some games. I don't know. I'm just guessing at this point, but there was some flashes of Keke Coutee during the year that I do remember, just because I fucking watch NFL Red Zone and I saw him come up on my screen every now and then. But I think wide receiver 48 is probably. Did he get hurt last year?
Yeah, he got hurt a couple different times.
He missed 10 games, but when he played, he had 6.8 targets a game.
Yeah. Okay. I thought
on the team.
Yeah, I thought I remember him getting in. I was like, wait, he definitely got hurt at some point. I'm coming in raw in this game. What is the timeout for?
Timeout. I need to make a quick confession. This is episode 201. We always do, me and DJ, we do these via Google Hangouts. If we have our guest, we have him via Google Hangouts. This is the first appearance a calculator has ever made my screen. I'm so pumped. Hopper, you broke out a calculator.
I'm going on the fly, man. It keeps me from flipping through spreadsheets. So it was one of those things where I had a recall of, I know Keke Coutee had a good target per game rate. I couldn't remember exactly what it was, so I pulled it up and ran it through the calculator real quick.
I had to do the math on it. No, but DJ was spot on. Like when he was playing, like he had some flashes. Hopper, do you like taking a flyer on this guy? I mean, it feels like it's fairly safe if he's healthy.
Yeah, it is fairly safe. It's good floor, and I like having a 4-player as my third or fourth wide receiver on my roster. I think you could definitely get Keke Coutee with that. The hamstring injuries are always a concern. I worry about those more than I do tears or breaks, because soft tissue issues do have a chance.
Break your hamstring?
What?
You can break your hamstring?
I think you missed part of that, DJ.
I think you missed the point there.
But yes, you definitely can. You can definitely break your hamstring.
I heard broken hamstring.
It's called a tear. Right. Broken bones or muscle tears bother me a bit less than what repeated strains and sprains do. Keke Coutee is a high risk to miss time. I can't label him as injury prone yet. He was only a rookie, but he is a high risk to miss time. However, 6.8 targets a game is very, very good. A 68% catch rate is very, very good. He's not going to be a touchdown threat, but if you're in a 3 wide receiver format or a multiple flex position format, he's a guy you're going to be able to roll out there during bye weeks or whatever else and get floor out of him as long as he's healthy, and that's where Keke Coutee's value is. He's a safe person to have on your bench.
Yeah, end of the 10th, early 11th. I'm not opposed to having him. I was able to scoop him up last year. I got lucky, I'll admit it. I played him on some weeks where he broke out. That was fantastic. So I kind of have a soft spot for him with that. But here's where I think he can even elevate a little bit more, because we just talked about Will Fuller. Like, he's the team's clear number 2. But man, like, how many games has this dude missed? If he misses more time, Keke's freaking targets are going to go up. He's already running from the slot. and we've seen the evolution of the slot receiver like take off to where it is now. I think he's going to continue to get a decent amount of targets when he does play. So yeah, end of the 10th, early 11th. Like what Hopper said, if you're in a league where you're starting 3 wide receivers, if you have multiple flex positions, I'm not opposed when this guy's healthy to throwing him into one of those.
What if I told you that Kiki Kuti on a target per game volume outpaced Will Fuller?
I think we would make a 30 for 30 out of it.
Yeah, well, he did. Because Will Fuller's a lot more explosive, but QT getting more volume.
The thing is with Will Fuller, it's like every game he played, he scored 19 touchdowns. Like that guy had like at one point he had like 11 catches, 10 touchdowns. It wasn't that, but you get my point.
I get your point. Touchdowns are funky though. I try to avoid that type of player. Let's put it that way. Will Fuller is the type of player that I do not ever want to own because it's so maddeningly frustrating when the touchdowns disappear.
So you're probably pretty low on Mike Williams then.
Yeah, Mike Williams is not something that I am projecting necessarily fantastic things from, but then again, why would I? Because Tyrell Williams left. I mean, we get a marginal bump, but Hunter Henry's coming back, so I'm not gonna fall in love with Mike Williams when Keenan Allen still exists and Hunter Henry's coming back and Melvin Gordon still exists, and I think he's not much more than what he was last year.
And by the way, DJ, he's a junior. Can we please leave juniors out of this? We're talking about sophomores.
Right. I was going off of what he said.
I mean, get it together here.
Yeah.
I kid. I want to clump these next people together and have each of you pick 1 to 2 of them you'd be most likely to want to own on your fantasy roster. These players include the Bears, Anthony Miller, the Saints, Tre'Quan Smith, the Broncos, Deshaun Hamilton, the Bills, Robert Foster, or the Packers, Marquez Valdes-Scantling. DJ, I'm going to let you kick this one off.
I want all the share. What?
I bet it's Valdes-Scantling.
I bet it is too.
Nope. I want all the shares of Tre'Quan Smith. Like, I want every piece of Tre'Quan Smith on my team. He's another guy who shows some flashes. But there's one guy there in, I'm just blanking on his name, Michael Thomas, who just went off last year. And Tre'Quan's going to fill in, and he's going to end up being a target monster in New Orleans. Another guy that Drew Brees can rely on.
Target Hopper.
I want every share of Tre'Quan. Like, I literally want him on every team because I think you're going to see one of the biggest jumps from 1 to 2 year when it comes to him on the Saints. And I want him. I need him. I have to have Tre'Quan Smith my team.
Here's my question for you, DJ. Your history as a Packers fan. When Aaron Rodgers talks to the media, is he usually pretty honest, or is he one of those quarterbacks that he's just going to say like the quarterback answer just to get the media off his back?
He had a quote today saying somebody asked him about not having a lot of freedom at the line, and he said, "I'm not trying to be cocky, but I'm paraphrasing. I'm not trying to be cocky, but with my rapport, I'm pretty sure I'm a guy that you want to have freedom at the line because I've seen a lot of things in this league." So.
All right, so that's kind of the answer I'm looking for, though. It's because he also came out in the media and said, like, MVS is starting to play at the speed that he times at. Like, back in the last year, it was like, yeah, he's a fast guy. He can do everything in practice when the pads are off. But when the pads came on, like, he wasn't quite, like, evolving to the point of making it game speed. He's saying so far in OTAs and everything that they've been doing so far, it's starting to click for him. And I'm just like, man, you get this guy in the 14th round, literally like the last round of your draft, and he's playing with Aaron Rodgers, and literally it's Adams, it's probably Geronimo Allison, and then I think MVS is probably going to be competing with snaps right there. So it's almost like, that's probably my guy, and he's at the lowest ADP of the 5 that I rattled off.
Well, what I know about Rodgers is he likes to talk about guys that are confident and young guys to get them positive. So the fact that he's talking about MVS makes me more worried than the fact that he's not. He doesn't say anything about EQ. I'm more positive about Equinemius St. Brown. If he's talking about Marquez Valdes-Scantling, I'm a little bit more worried about Marquez Valdes-Scantling because he needs to get positive energy out of that guy by giving him compliments. That's not something that makes me excited.
Damn, you are in this man's head. I thought you were telling me something different with his interview technique, and you were like, no, it's a 180. If he's talking about you, you need attention.
A young guy specifically, yeah.
Fair enough. Hopper, of those 5 I rattled off, is there one or two of them that you are feeling most confident in this year about owning in redraft?
I'll give you one, and it's going to seem a bit homer, but it's Anthony Miller. This is a guy that dislocated his shoulder multiple times last year and still caught 7 touchdowns. Saw 54 targets. I think that the Bears' offense as a whole kind of takes that next step. He's going to be playing healthy. I think that he's a good candidate to take the next step. He plays with an edge. Again, 7 touchdowns on a shoulder that you dislocated twice is pretty good. So he's a very, very intriguing flyer for me.
Yeah, I'm not opposed to Anthony Miller. I'm just so stuck on that Bears team right now because I like so many of their pieces. I love Cohen. I'm going to set aside the quarterback for a second. I love Allen Robinson. Taylor Gabriel is like this fast playmaker. I love what they're doing at tight end with Trey Burton, and they have Shaheen. And I really want to like Anthony Miller. The quarterback is what kind of throws me off here a little bit. I just don't know if he can make too many people relevant in fantasy to be consistent enough that way.
He got better year 1 to year 2, though. I expect him to get better again year 2 to year 3. We saw it more as the season went on. I mean, his completion percentage was up 7 points. Touchdown rate was up 3.4% to 5.5, which is respectable. And interception rate also up a bit, but they trusted him to throw more. He's a guy that only threw the ball 434 times last year. Would have been just over 500 if he played every game. And, all reports out of camp have been good on Trubisky. So I'm kind of banking on him to, well, it's not a huge jump, to keep that steady kind of upward progression that we saw from year 1 to year 2.
And I had heard Nagy, I don't remember what I was seeing it on, but I saw an interview with Matt Nagy, and he was saying, yeah, we threw a lot at Trubisky just to see what he could handle. And now you're in another year with Matt Nagy, who's looking like an offensive guru at this point in time. So, yeah, I'm not opposed to having him. I just wanted to bring that up just to see how you felt with all the people he has to support.
Yeah, no, and I definitely get the mouths to feed argument, but here's the thing. I think there's going to be a point in time where Anthony Miller surpasses Allen Robinson.
Wow.
I don't think it's this upcoming year, but I do think that eventually happens because, I mean, Allen Robinson got hurt, but what's Allen Robinson had? 1 good season?
Yeah, pretty much.
Just saying.
Yeah, no, that's true. I do feel a little bit bad. I'm out of players, but I did say that I wanted to start a segment called Pregnant Wife Advice with Ben, and I haven't given any advice yet, so I do need to give my one piece of advice. And so far, I would say that my piece of advice for all of you, and this is what I'm saying, I wanted to do the daddy advice with DJ, and it's not meant for everybody, but maybe it's those who just had a baby, or it's those who are planning on having a baby. And now here, I can do the same thing, but it's how you treat the wife rather than the child. And my number one piece of advice so far in week 1 of this is pick those battles wisely, because those mood swings can be a real thing, and I have lost some intense battles, and I'm not about to be doing that again. So pick your battles wisely. DJ, are you on board with that, or how are you feeling here? DJ's going to give me the silent treatment. He's so mad at me.
I have no comment.
Well, one other thing that I need to bring up. We put out a tweet before this podcast, kind of impromptu. We always ask if you have any NFL questions, any fantasy questions, life advice, relationship advice. And our boy Ryan, every time we put this out, he always asks, are you looking to give advice or get advice? So Ryan actually gave us advice, and I'm just like, damn it, Ryan, why are you doing this to us? But I love it. And the advice that Ryan gave to us was the fact that honey-do lists don't exist. And in the event in your relationship that they do, make one for her as well. So, DJ, I have to just go to you right away. Does a honey-do list live in your life? And if it does, do you ever return one back?
There's the reason a honey-do list does exist is because I think guys are just naturally so lazy about shit, and we need to be told what to do. Is the wife's already done something so much,
right,
that they're like, do something. Well, at least for me, because I just don't fucking do anything. Period. I just don't give a shit. And then my wife is just like, can you do this, this, and this, and this? And there's the honey-do list. Because she's already got her own list for herself because she's a planner. So
Right.
it's like, no, you can't give a list back. If you want to live, don't give a list back.
That's
I
what
don't know what that guy's saying.
That's what my question was going to be. Can you imagine like the repercussions if you made a list and like you went to work one day and left it on the table, like, here you go, and made like 6, 7 things? Like, would you want to come home that night?
Mine would all be sexual.
Hopper, I don't know if you can beat that, but what do you feel about honey-do list?
They don't really exist in my life because
Bingo.
the standing agreement is I pay the bills, she does the chores. But in the event of
Sugar daddy.
I guess in the event of married sugar daddy,
Podcast business is booming.
But in the event of something needing done, it's pretty much I get a list read off to me.
Yep.
Hey, can you do this? And it's like a light suggestion that if it's not done, I'm gonna get in trouble for.
Facts.
But I do return that favor from time to time. Hey, since you're off today, can you do this, 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 and this? And it gets done. So I mean, it's a pretty good back and forth. But I agree with Ryan's statement. If honey-do list exists, then you give her one too, because it's a partnership. Both of you can your way.
Just became a problematic podcast.
It's a rocky road that you guys are going on. I mean, there's roller coasters.
2019, he's like, I pay the bills and she does the chores.
There's well-manufactured roller coasters, and then there's old wooden ones. And I feel like you and Ryan Hopper might be on that same wooden roller coaster. That just seems way too risky for me.
It's been the agreement our whole relationship, though, and she covers her own stuff too, and I do what I need to do. I mean, basically, the standing agreement is pick up after yourself and don't be a piece of shit.
Hey,
I already am a piece of shit though. Like
I like old fashioned, man. Do you guys have slaves too?
I can't go that route.
Yeah, DJ's here. You're fine.
Oh,
nice. Well, before we wrap this up, we want to say thanks to Hopper once more for joining us on this fairly impromptu podcast. So, Kristopher, why don't you go ahead and tell everyone once again where they can find your work?
Yep, you can find me on Twitter at BeerfieldFF. Find the show on Twitter at BeerfieldFF. I'm on Twitter at HotBFF with 2 Ps. We release podcasts weekly, usually sometime between Sunday and Monday. Just depends on our schedules most of the time.
Free podcast. Well, go for it. Sorry.
Yeah. So find that on YouTube, Beerfield Fantasy Football, iTunes, Spotify, wherever you go get those. And if you happen to follow me on Twitter or go to GoFundMe, search Hopper Goes Through a Table for St. Jude's, and donate $1. Anything helps out, and I'll get put through a table.
Yes, actually put that on your honey-do list. Say go to that website and donate at least $1 to Hopper Going Through a Table. I can't wait to watch that. Sounds fantastic. I don't want to see you get hurt, but anytime another human being is going through a table, dude, interest is sparked. So I'm in on that. As well as what Hopper just said, check us out on Twitter at Loaded Box. Check out our website. We have our latest blogs. We have our podcasts, our fantasy rankings. Any and everything you need can be found at loadedboxpodcast.com. Our next episode will be doing a similar thing. However, instead of quarterbacks and receivers, we'll be doing running backs and tight ends. Also, like Hopper said, we're available basically anywhere you can find podcasts. iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, YouTube. Make sure you subscribe, rate, and review. Unsubscribe, resubscribe, re-rate, and re-review. DJ, you look really mad at me right now, but go ahead and send us out.
This is where we need to have a perfect timed outro for Trick Love the Kids, but bye.
That would have been so good.